Every time you think the Planned Parenthood issue is put to bed, there's a new secret video released. Some say the most recent video is maybe, well, murder. Some say that this is just another political witch hunt by conservatives. What's your take on Planned Parenthood, Bob?
I got to tell you, it just keeps getting worse. That's all I know.
When they thumped that little fetus's chest and the heart began, I thought, this has got to stop. Yeah. This has got to stop.
And I've said it on that we've talked about these kind of issues before in the past. We've talked about abortion and those kind of things, and I think everybody probably knows that. I don't believe that government should be telling a woman what to do with her body, but I also don't believe in abortion as a form of birth control. So, this is, these are definitely late-term abortions.
Colin, you're Democrat-ish. I think that's what you said earlier in the show today. Is this, as many Democrats say, is this a war on women? Conservatives saying this is a bad deal.
I think, as with all things, the truth lies somewhere in the middle. So I do think that there is an assault on the good work that Planned Parenthood does. In a lot of areas, they're the only ones providing any sort of services. The problem is that we have as a society is simply telling people that you shouldn't do this, obviously is not helping us curb the birth rate. So they do a lot of things outside of paying for abortions or offering abortions in terms of education, in terms of providing birth control, which is not abortion. And I agree with Bob. Although I am pro-choice in terms of believing that the government should not be dictating what women should do with their bodies, I also don't believe in using abortion as a means of birth control.
But definitely alternatives to abortion.
Two things. First of all,
adoption is one.
Yes.
First of all,
and responsibility is the other.
Oh, no, we can't use that word.
Charlie Manson probably did something good in his life as well, but that doesn't mean he was a good person, right? So, in my mind, based on the body of work, they may do some good things, but boy, this really spoils a lot of it for me. Number two, this is not about abortion. This is not about abortion. I am a Republican that is pro-choice. I can tell you from experience that it's not a choice I would make, but this is not about abortion. This is about selling fetal body parts. This is about the process of aborting a child, and clearly they have altered the process, causing what harm to the baby as it's being killed.
This is about $500 million of taxpayer money going to fund Planned Parenthood.
Yeah, and I have a big problem with
Well,
that. And I have no problem taking that $500 million or more and putting it somewhere else to deal with women's health issues. I got no problem with that.
Well, but the real issue, and I think we need to divorce the two sides of this. So one is the legitimate concern over what is being seen, and I think by the same token, we've seen a lot of these videos that have been doctored. There's more to the story. The problem, however, is there is an assault. So regardless whether we're talking about Planned Parenthood directly, if you look at what's happened in Texas, if you look at what's happened in Louisiana, there's a systematic effort to, through any means possible, curtail, although they know that the forces that are doing this know that they cannot reverse Roe v. Wade, they're killing it through 1,000 stab wounds by limiting it bureaucratically. So you have to have the same facilities as a hospital, which is ridiculous because these are small little clinics. You have to have X, Y, and Z, which is basically driving a lot of these places out of business, where you have situations where somebody living in West Texas has to drive 4 or 5 miles to receive any of the services. We're not talking about abortions necessarily. We're talking about any preventive care or pregnancy type.
4 or 5 whole miles?
Well, I'm sorry, 4 or 5 hours.
Okay.
Is what I meant.
Thank you.
Thank you for catching that.
Because I was really concerned there for a minute that 4 or 55 whole miles.
So, well, they're Texas miles, so that's
a
little bit
bigger in
biggest
Texas.
mile.
I know, yeah.
Well, from my perspective, I am just thoroughly disgusted with these videos that have come out, and I don't. There may be some parts of it that are out of context, but from what I've viewed, not as much as what they're getting credit for.
Well, my part of the Republican Party, and I've been a lifelong Republican, And I'm pro-life, no doubt about that. Of course, I can put a comma at the after pro-life and say, certainly there are exceptions that need to be made. But my wing, if you will, the wing of the Republican Party that I have always supported, says clearly this group, Planned Parenthood, has way overstepped their bounds. I mean, talking about women's health issues, good thing. Talking about research, using stem cells, good thing. But killing babies is just over the line in my particular.
What's that whole first do no harm rule?
That's exactly right. And the
Hippocratic
other thing,
oath.
the other thing that struck me more than anything else, and I wrote it down here in big letters because I wanted to make sure it was said, arrogance. Arrogance. I don't care if those tapes have been doctored. They haven't been doctored that much.
Exactly.
But those people sitting around with a wine glass in front of a camera talking the way they were talking is nothing but pure arrogance.
Let's talk about the $1.2 billion that Planned Parenthood's budget has ballooned to in the last year or so. And that, again, back to over $500 million of taxpayer funds are included in that $1.2 billion.
Sure.
You know, I mean, if you got $1.2 billion, you don't need our $500 million. All right, let's cut off the funding and let's think of something else to do with that. As Jim said, something else to do with that money to help women.
Sure.
Art, I walk along the lines with you. I mean, I don't believe in abortion, but I also don't believe in. I don't believe it's government's job to regulate that.
That's exactly
I mean,
right.
because you're regulating morality, I think you can't do that.
It doesn't work too well usually.
No, I mean, it's definitely a moral choice. It's not a political choice, and we've got to stop acting like it's a political choice.
Sort of
but
like
it's
prohibition at some level. I mean, that was trying to regulate morality.
not. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Failed miserably.
Sure.
Yes,
The war on
indeed.
drugs hasn't gone too well.
No, it hasn't.
Well, it hasn't been.
It's
just-
filled up our
It's
jails.
only been a police action. It hasn't really been a war.
Well, and most of it's workplace violence, right, too. I mean,
So there are more videos that they have to release. Is that
yeah, they said
correct?
there's a total of 12 is the last thing I heard.
And see, now that part I don't believe it. Release all 12.
Well,
If
yeah,
you got 12, release
No,
all 12.
I think
Why are
they
you
get
doing
more
it this way?
press. I think they get
Well,
more
I think
press.
that's wrong. I think that now I think you are waging a war on women.
It
If
is
you're
a
doing it
political
that way, as
process.
opposed to just putting them out there.
I think you're waging a war on Planned Parenthood.
I think you're wrong. I think you're.
All right.
Who's closing this out?
Me. Last call.
better close it out before I say something else.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Last call's next. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Absolutely.